everybody. This is John Lemesney. I'm sitting here with Sean Petrosky, newly married Sean Petrosky, new and improved. And this is the Customer and the Service, where we talk about customer service experiences that we have, best practices that we think should be employed, and our own take on customer service. How you doing, Sean?
Oh, I'm doing great. How are you doing, John?
I'm doing pretty well. How's married life treating you?
Oh, it's amazing. Everything is so different now that we're married.
Everything people tell you about marriage, is it true?
No, it's better.
Good for you, man. Congratulations.
Thanks.
So tonight on the Customer and the Service, I have a topic where I wanted to talk about one of my brand new clients, and we sort of walked into the topic of customer service unexpectedly. The job is a design job where I am designing a form that her various clients will use in order to do interviews with their own clients. So it's a little bit involved in that way. But the industry is cosmetology. So this is for hairdressing salons and coloring shops and that sort of a thing. And what the form does is essentially walks the salon shop representatives through a series of questions that allow them to find out what kind of person that their client is. It asks them what their typical hair color is. It asks them the kinds of activities they go through in the week, whether or not they spend a lot of time in the sun, what their favorite shape is, what their favorite color is. It allows for an assessment on a larger scale of what their color type is. Like, I'm assuming that you have heard about this idea that you have sort of like a season that is your season, like you're either a spring, a summer, a fall, or winter.
Right.
Do you know what you are?
No, I don't. I mean,
I think you might be a winter. It has to do essentially with your hair color, your eye color, your skin color, mostly eye and skin. And I found out today that I'm likely a summer, which is surprising because I usually typically wear the clothes and colors that are meant for people who are winters or falls, like more muted tones and whatnot. So anyway, what was interesting was we went in and we sort of had the small talk conversation that you typically have with a client to sort of see how things are going on, see what's going on in life. And we got into this incredibly deep discussion about humanity and about prejudice and about nutrition and about locality and about diversity in clients, and how this form begins to help her clients to find out who their clients are. And yes, it's very particular to her industry, but what I kept coming back to was I wish that I had this form to help me get a psychological profile for clients, for my own clients. And she said, I think that would be a really great use because while this particular form is not universal, it really has to do with hair color and hairstyle and the kinds of things that you do every day. But the questions are not only very practical, they're very revealing. They give you a very clear sense of who you are talking to. You know, in the same way when you go into a doctor's office and you answer your medical history, I think it's especially interesting that she wants to bring that to cosmetology. I guess she's been using a form, but the reason that I was called in is because the form was not especially beautiful. It was very functional, but it was not easy on the eyes. And in fact, many people would look at the form and they would sort of balk a little bit and say, this is a lot of questions. You know, why do you need to know all this? Whereas if they fill out the form, you get a really good sense of who they are and what beauty is to them, and how what their uh, activities are in regards to coloring their hair, and what their activities are in regards to what their preferences are. In other words, um, you might not know unless you ask a rather personal question, what's your natural hair color? And if the form allows sort of in the same way that the kiosk at Wawa allows you to get what you really want and not have any guilt about it with an interaction with a human, that you might not want to say, whatever, I want to have a pizza steak, because you might not want to have the person behind the thing sort of assess the fact that you're making or you're asking for a pizza steak and get like the look in their eye or whatever. This form sort of removes that element too. It takes a lot of the fear of that interpersonal interaction out of it. And I would imagine you, Sean, might not be ever afraid to tell somebody that you want a pizza steak, but there are people out there who might. And the same is true for hair and for makeup and for nails and for all that kind of thing. So anyway, I was thinking about the way in which this form sort of provides a strong sense of customer service. It's not only reinforcing the idea that I want to know who you are, but also gives you a record of who that person is, so that the next time they come in, you can pull out the form, or better yet, do data entry and put it into a database where you can begin to get a sense across the board of who your customer base is, psychologically, color-wise, expectations-wise. And with that information, you can serve them better. You can go after solutions that meet the needs of your type of customer better. Or you can diversify. You can say, I realize today that everybody who comes into our shop is whatever, of a particular ethnic background, or they all, the strange thing emerged in our data where everybody is doing horseback riding in the nature, or in the outdoor activity assessment. And the question becomes, what do you do with that information? But more importantly, what would you do if you didn't have that data? So what do you think about this idea of form as customer service, Sean?
I see it two ways. I see it as a good thing, and I also, as a business owner, I see it as a good thing, and as a customer, I see it as a bad thing.
How so?
So, obviously, as a business owner, knowing as much information as possible about my customers, clients, potential customers, helps me in the long run. Better provide, different services that may cater to those needs or wants or facts about a person. Also helps a level of personalization. You get to know your clients maybe a little bit better on a personal level. That might take, the information on the form that your client was asking for may normally take months or years for someone in the cosmetology field to learn while conversing with their clients, ever so briefly, as you typically spend an hour getting your hair done or something like that. You know what I mean? It may take, 5 visits of an hour apiece to get all that information out, whereas, your client now has all that information right up front, and that's great. So I see the benefit there. But as a customer, I see this as another intrusion into my personal information. This is basically, I look at this not to bash your client or say anything out of turn, but I look at this as another form of kind of like personal data farming, in the sense that we put our information in Facebook, in Google Plus, on Twitter, whatever, and they are farming our data. They are selling it to advertisers. They are drawing conclusions. They are forecasting all kinds of information. We are only able to scrape a small part of it ourselves with Facebook's open graph search capabilities, but developers and marketers are able to generate much more data that would probably scare us if we knew the information that is contained and can be assembled from the information we put into social networking. I look at this as another example of that. So if a potential business that I'm going to do business with is asking me to fill out a very exhaustive form that contains that helps build a, I don't want to say psychological profile, but a profile of
It's a
myself.
kind of a psychological profile.
Yeah. So a profile of myself, my habits, my needs, my wants, my desires, as it in this case relates to cosmetology. There is an opportunity there for that information to be used and abused in a way that I may not be comfortable with as a potential customer. I'm sure that the form is optional for customers to fill out in your example.
Absolutely.
And if somebody's uncomfortable, I'm sure it's not an issue. But at the same time, what kind of privacy policy is in place? Are people aware of how the data is going to be used? Are they agreeing to this business being able to sell this information? These are things that are going off in my head. And sure, it's a great use of technology. It's clever that this person is running this business this way. I've never heard of a cosmetology business doing this. I think it's cool that they figured this out. But at the same time,
she said, for example, they're one of the few industries. She said touch industries. In other words, people who physically lay hands on other people.
Yeah.
Who don't have any sort of questionnaire. So we're sort of bridging a gap.
Right. Well, there may be a reason for that. You know what I mean? Like doctors need it to save your life. You know what I mean? And doctors and health records, typically, that's a level of trust that you have as a patient. That information is going to be stored securely, safely, not going to be shared. You know that there's a chain of custody that goes in with record transfers in the medical field. Same thing with the law field. Attorney-client privilege is a huge thing. There's all these industries that, service industries that we know of where sensitive information is exchanged, and we know that it's securely stored or whatever. Banking is another one. But the cosmetology field, is not one of those industries where we're used to giving up sensitive information, personal information. So that would make me very apprehensive to participate in that, for sure.
So the thing about it, though, is that, so do you get your hair cut, Sean?
I do, yes.
Have you ever had a conversation with your barber about what your wants are?
In terms of what?
In terms of anything. Has anybody ever asked you what you want?
What, how I want my hair cut, or what do I want out of life?
Well, either.
I've been asked how I want my hair cut, yes, and I've had personal conversations in the sense of this is what's going on in my life, this is the movie I saw, etc.
Do you think there was a record made of that information?
Definitely not.
You don't think maybe even a memory exists of that conversation? So the next time you go back...
Memories, I don't think that's a fair comparison of memory.
Oh, it's absolutely a fair comparison. Memory is a record.
Yeah, but a memory is a record, but filling out a form that is a profile on that ends up generating a profile about yourself that could go into a database where trends and analysis can be done on that information is far different than a memory.
Well, those were all yes and no. But those are all suggestions. So, for example, in my Google Contacts, when I have just started working with a client, I might have a conversation with them. The first thing I do is I open up my contacts list, create a contact for them, and start to write notes. Do you think that I am endangering the privacy of the person who I am talking to?
In that regard, no.
How is this any different?
Well, because you're asking, the difference is that you're filling out a generic text box and you're writing specific information that you deem is important for your personal use. Whereas when I give a...
I will, by the way, very quickly be implementing something similar. In fact, I have a design brief, but the design brief doesn't go into as much detail as this went into. By the way, this is not a 4-page form. This is a one-sheet, 2-sided. and many of the sections are sort of like a single section takes up whatever 3 inches. So it's not exhaustive. It's just because of the way it was presented, it was seen as exhaustive. And also, I think because people are a little surprised that somebody who's cutting your hair or coloring your hair would be interested in what your weekly activities are, and might even ask, why do you want to know if I'm doing horseback riding? You know, but the answer is because we want to know how much sun exposure you have. But if you just ask somebody how much sun exposure they have, they'll say, oh, I don't spend any time in the sun. But if you ask them, do you go to the beach? How often do you go to the beach? Do you ever go to spectator sports outdoors? Do you ever play tennis? Do you ever ride your bike? Do you ever spend time in the car? How much time do you spend in the car going to work? How much time, what was your travel time to this location, etc. All of a sudden it's like, oh, I guess I'm out in the sun a lot. But if you just ask the simple question, how much time do you spend in the sun, somebody might answer with not a false positive, but might answer incorrectly according to the need that we have, which is how much damage is being done to your hair color due to sun exposure.
Mm-hmm.
But even then, even without the form, those questions are being asked. The problem is that those questions then have to be asked every time. So let's say that we're talking about one of your clients. Let's say that we're talking about a faculty member at your workplace. And let's say that there's a high turnover rate, which there often is in salons. How do you feel about the idea of having sort of a profile established for the faculty for a technology profile, like a technology use profile? And of course, you and I both know that you establish one over time through a relationship that you have with a particular client. But that client then has to get to know everybody who they touch from a technology perspective, right?
Mm-hmm.
If we were at our former workplace, they might have had to know 10 different people over time that would each have their own impression of what their technology knowledge was, what they liked, what angered them from a technology perspective, what they were capable of, what they knew, what their skills were, what their expectations were. We begin to do that in the help desk system. A good help desk system, for example, gives you an opportunity to create a profile over time. I've never seen a help desk system that does that especially well. I can look at their past tickets and I can read through them, but there's nothing in any centralized place that says these following things are true, these following things are things we've gained over the entire experience that we've had with this person. We also never do any sort of a technology profiling. We just sort of like find it out as we go along. But wouldn't it be interesting to consider finding that out ahead of time according to some standard form that we could add to and delete from over time in order to find out the things that we want to know? Isn't there something that you would like to know about every new faculty member you work with from a technology perspective?
Well, there is. It's PC or Mac.
That's where it ends for you?
Yeah, before they get there, absolutely.
That's interesting, because I want to know a lot of other things. I want to know how much experience they have on their machine. I want to know if they've only ever used Mac or whether they've also used Windows and Linux. I want to know if they're a Unix user. I want to know if they have a strong preference for the R statistical package. I want to know if they have any experience with graphic design or whether I should offer those services. I want to know a lot of things. There's a whole list of things I would like to know. What applications of the following have you used to what degree? And of course, it's always opt-out. And the fact that that information is being collected, if I'm Facebook, I assume that that information is being used in ways that I did not intend it to. If I'm a salon, I guess it's possible that that information could be saved or could be sold. I definitely, due to this conversation, I'm going to add a clause that says this information will not be used outside of these premises for any purpose. You know, would that help to quell your fears?
Yeah, I mean, if there was like I said, a privacy policy or something that would define how the information was being collected, stored, etc., used, that would help me feel a little bit better, sure. But when it comes to the, me and my needs, when it comes to, getting my hair cut, I don't see a need for me to fill out a form. A woman who has her hair done in different styles and gets her hair dyed different ways may feel differently, but Sean Petrowski, has been getting the same haircut since he's born, does not see a benefit to filling an exhaustive form about my habits and activities as it relates to my, glamour.
So would you say that you have wants and needs that are met by a haircut?
Yes.
And do you have any idea what those wants and needs are?
They're pretty simple. Maintain the same style that I walk in with, just in a shorter version.
Okay. What does the style provide you with? I'm not recording this, by the way.
Peace of
mind.
mind.
I am. I'm just not putting it into a form.
Peace of mind, I guess.
Peace of mind. Well, that's interesting. That's a psychological element. Do you know why I shave my head?
You're going bald?
Yeah, because I'm going bald, and I figure why have a middleman in there? I'll just shave it, and then it's like, oh, he's bald. He's not sort of bald. He's just bald.
Right.
So, and plus I don't have to worry about it so much. It's really easy to maintain. Like, I prefer simplicity and ease of use and easy maintenance over any degree of style. And plus, I feel like the style of my shaved head sort of matches the style of me. But in a short conversation that I had with this woman today, because she's an expert really in these kinds of issues, I said, I've often wondered about the shape of my beard. Sometimes it's just, it gets ridiculously long, and sometimes it's really puffy, and I never know how to shape it. And anytime I've ever taken any serious scissors to it, I'm always disappointed because I like length as opposed to shortness when it comes to my beard. There's sort of like the Samson thing that's going on. It's part of the reason that I keep my beard longer rather than shorter. I see you smiling. So the idea, though, is I asked her as an expert, based on the conversation that we had, and we went into these really deep subjects. We didn't go through the form. I mean, we went through the form, but not about me. After having this long discussion, I said, what's your impression, and what would you suggest for me just for my beard? And she said, well, my impression about you is that you're a minimalist, that you're an artist, and the word that keeps coming to mind as a descriptor for you is that you're a futurist, that you're really interested in, you have a very futuristic look. And I said, okay, what does that mean? And immediately, my mind went to Picard with a goatee or something. And she said, there is a sort of, your look is sort of a shorthand for this futurist thing. And I said, well, that's very interesting. That sort of supports my lifestyle. It supports my brand. It supports my, I'm a technologist. I'm whatever. And she said, well, so since that's amenable to you, do you want to know how to finish it? And I said, sure. And she said, so for example, my beard should have more of a defined shape, and it should be more flat to my face, and should be straight at the edge. She talked about all these physical attributes of how I should shape this piece of hair. And I said, what would that do? And she said it would push that idea of this futurist look further. It would make it almost like an anime caricature sort of a thing that would give people a shorthand about what they should expect when they talk to you. And she said, what feedback do you get about your impression? What do people usually feel? And I said, people are often scared of me before they know me. And she said, "Oh, okay, I understand that. What else?" And I said that people often, over and over and over again, use the word intense. They use the word intense to describe a combination of my look and my persona. And I don't necessarily think that's a good thing, because I'd rather be inviting or comforting or whatever. Intense is not necessarily the thing that I want. And I can be intense, I get that, but it's not necessarily the thing that I want to pass on as like the lasting impression. And she said, I don't get intense at all. And she said, the thing that I get is this artistic, sort of low-key, minimalist feeling about your look. So whatever feedback you're getting, I feel differently. And I found that very reassuring. So I think it was a start of a longer discussion, too, about what I said to her was that the one thing that I don't like about this forum is that it's not universal. And she said, what do you mean? We cater to everybody. And I said, it's not universal at all. First and foremost, this is a forum for women because of the items that you list in the outdoor activities, because of the facial features that you indicate in the form, like the picture of, an indication of like what should happen with their hair is not a male head, it's a female head and female hairstyles and whatever. And I said, and I really feel like this should be extended to sartorialism, the idea that there is a male interest in clothing and matching their style to clothing. Because for most of us, it's so simplistic because we only know the most basic rules. And if you were able to apply the rules of clothing in the same way that you have the rules of hairstyle and fashionable hairstyle and color and all those things to the wardrobe for a man, you would have a billion-dollar idea, because nobody's doing that. It's difficult for somebody who's interested like me to find that. I can have a conversation with like my expert friend Sean Petrosky and learn a lot, but he's not handing me something that gives me insight into my choices and whether they're the right choices for me, depending on what it is that I want to convey. That being technologist, openness, etc. So I think we're on to something larger, but I definitely want to have a longer discussion with her about what it is. And I guess I am talking about the form, but even if the form wasn't there, like even if it was just a guideline for somebody to have a conversation with a new client, that's the important bit. That's the bit that goes into a more personal understanding of somebody and how you can serve them. If Wawa asked me questions, for example, about who I was and what I wanted to try to achieve and whatever, and if I went up to the kiosk, it recognized me in some way and gave me choices that were more suited to my needs, like the fact that I don't eat seafood and the fact that I prefer a lot of vegetables and the fact, what is so funny?
Wawa and seafood, I'm sorry.
I think they have seafood at Wawa.
No, they do not.
I'm pretty sure they have like a fish stew.
They do. I don't think they do. No.
Okay.
Lobster tails at Wawa coming soon.
I would not be surprised in the least. I would not be. I mean, they're all East Coast. Why wouldn't they have seafood?
That's a good point. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to break you off your tangent there. I'm sorry.
So anyway, this idea of personalization, though, can be pushed, and technology can help, but is not essential to that push. I think that it's just a good opportunity. The more I know about the people who I'm trying to serve, isn't that the better? I mean, take the form out of it. You seem to be stuck on this idea that I'm collecting your data, and so therefore I'm going to sell Sean Petrosky up the river. But I'm saying, like, shouldn't I know as much as I can about the people who I'm trying to serve?
You should, but I feel like, in the example you gave about people in my role or someone who is, like you said, in the touch industry, I feel like there is a relationship that needs to be built, and part of that,
Oh, I agree.
but part of that I think goes along with finding out about your customer through that relationship being built. The idea that bothers me is putting all this information in ahead of time. It's like very one-sided. You know what I'm
Of
saying? Like
course.
I'm giving up all this information about me, and I'm not learning about the service provider at all. Whereas in the example that I live day in and day out, there's a give and take that happens with each session. I've been going to the same girl now for, I don't know, 3 years, 4 years, something like that. And
Wow, that's a long term.
no, it's not, because the person who cut my hair before that, we're talking, was close to 20 years. I was going to this same place.
I was being sarcastic.
Okay, well, I'm just saying that the person who cut my hair before that, it was like a 20-year relationship. Maybe I'm exaggerating by 3 to 5 years there, but so I went from someone who cut my hair for that long to someone new, and I have, trust issues when it comes to hairstylists.
Just hairstylists?
Yes. And so when it came time to finding a new stylist, we built this rapport, this relationship that happened little by little with each visit. And I feel that for me, if I had been asked to fill out a form that asked me to give up specific information that I normally would relay over time in each session, that for me would make me feel very uncomfortable, and I would not be happy about that. I like the fact that we're starting off on an equal footing, meeting each other for the first time. You're getting to know each other, getting to build trust. That there's getting to learn each other's personalities. Like, I like that fact that we're both going into this relationship clean and not knowing and getting to learn and feel out. And that's how I also look at my job. I don't want to, like I said, there's a reason I only want to know PC or Mac. Everything else to me is all about building with each visit. It's all about, I just want to know if you're a PC person or a Mac person, and everything else that you listed that you want to know, that you, John, I'll get all that information. But let me get it over time. Let me build trust. Let me build foundation. Let me build a rapport. Let me assemble a picture in my head. I'm not interested in like a barrage of information that I get from a form.
So let me give you a worst case scenario.
Yeah.
Let's say that you choose this method where you learn over time, which is perfectly fine. It's the way that we do it. And on the second session, you perform some action that is tantamount to a disaster in the mind of the client. Something that would have been obvious had you had this form, but was only realized after you performed this act, which was unexcusable in the mindset of the client. But because, if we follow the two scenarios, one scenario where you stumbled into it, and the other scenario where you asked a question ahead of time, they told you, and, let's say the question was, what's the one thing you would never want me to do with your computer? And I'll give you an example. Back at our previous employer, both of our previous employer, I sat down with a faculty member maybe my first week there, and I gave him a cold call because I was asked to call 3 faculty members in each department and just set up a time just to get together and help them with whatever. So I sat down at their computer and I moved some icons on their desktop because it was a really cluttered desktop and there were like icons on top of icons. And I needed to get to something that was underneath one of the icons. This was on a Mac. And so I took one of the icons and moved it like over to one of the open spots on the desktop and did it again in order to unearth some icons underneath that I needed to get to in order to solve the problem. And the faculty member said, "What in the hell do you think you're doing?" And I said, I'm moving these icons because I can't get to I have to get to the, and they said, "I don't think you're going to be here very long if you continue to do things like that." And I was so surprised, I was so taken aback by the reaction in the short time that I'd been there to what I thought was a very simple change. And I was going to perform much larger changes in a second, but I never got to it. He ended the meeting, asked me to send him instructions by email, and he sent me out of his office.
Well, I'll just tell you right now, I would never do what you did.
I wouldn't either, but I would not have. At the time, I was brand new to the industry, and I had no guidance, not only about that action, but also about this particular client.
So in your example, and having the fact that you are new to the industry, you still would have not had the forthright to build a questionnaire to address that issue.
I wouldn't have had to, because this is not being developed by the practitioners. This is being developed by an expert.
Okay.
It would be developed by an expert like me. In other words, I'm going to create this form for the work that you and I do, and I'm going to publish it in Creative Commons and just give it away and say, if you'd like to know more about your clients, go ahead and use this so that you have some baseline understanding of what's important to them, what they're trying to achieve, and what, I think this is a great idea, personally. And I would include on the form this privacy clause that would talk about, for example, not reusing, and I'll just set it to Creative Commons, no remixing, or whatever. Right. On your Surface, you'll be remixing my form.
I will be with that DJ, the DJ keyboard. I'm gonna fucking do that.
Yeah.
Just you wait.
I can't wait. I can't wait to hear the DJ SP remix.
Well, again, I think it's just we have two philosophical differences on stuff. I guess I'm a little bit more old school when it comes to being in a service role. You know what I mean? And I really don't have an interest in building a profile in a system with a form about the people that I use, and if I was a hairstylist, I don't think I'd be, there's certain industries where I think it makes sense. I'm not disputing that, but I think in the roles that we're talking about, cosmetology, the technologies that I do,
service work.
Yeah, service work. I don't know. I don't see a benefit to it based on the way that I conduct myself, and I view it as very superfluous, and unnecessary, and if anything, it's just kind of fluff that doesn't, at the end of the day, would not benefit me at all. But that's me, though, and that's how I look at it.
Interesting. So that's what I got. You have any customer service or other stories to tell?
Yeah. Had another amazing experience at the Microsoft store this weekend. This one at the Bridgewater Commons. Went to the Bridgewater Commons for the first time, and we're just checking it out there, see what's going on in Bridgewater. And we stopped in the Microsoft store. I happen to have an old iPhone 4 lying around. I heard they were doing trade-ins. I got $200 in a Microsoft gift card for that. And listen to this story. So Microsoft stores in certain
I'm all ears.
certain locations on the West Coast were giving away the Nokia 1020 for free to AT&T users that re-signed their contracts. And Crystal's been thinking about getting one. So after I traded my phone in, I just said to the guys, like, listen, by any chance, are you guys doing the free 1020 offer? And he said, actually, we're not. That's only for certain stores on the West Coast. But he said, but because you mentioned it, I'll be willing to honor that for you today, if that's something that you want to do. And I said, oh, okay, well, let me check. So I brought Crystal over. She talked about it. You know, she went over to a demo unit, used the phone for a while. She decided that she wanted. So they actually honored. So Crystal saved about $200. Didn't have to shell out one penny. Got that phone for free, and they weren't even offering that promotion in the Bridgewater store or even on any of the stores on the East Coast. So that was some pretty amazing customer service there. And they gave us bottles of water while we waited, while they processed Crystal's upgrade, and just another great retail experience at the Microsoft store. And I had a blast. Loved it. Loved every second of it. And just super happy about it.
That's cool. I heard it has a nice camera.
Yeah, the camera's incredible. It's something that's pretty amazing. So, yeah, so that was definitely some good customer service we had going on this weekend. And yeah, so another check in the plus column for the Microsoft store.
Nice.
Yes.
All right. Well, our schedule's back on.
Yes.
Any reason to believe I won't see you next week?
No, I'll be here.
Fantastic. Thank you, sir. It's always a pleasure to speak with you.
Absolutely. See you next week.
I'll talk to you soon.
All right, bye.
Bye.